S&P has downgraded South Africa further into junk status territory. S&P has put South Africa's long-term foreign currency credit rating at BB minus, or the third tier of non-investment grade. And it said that this was due to the impact of the coronavirus on the economy. The downgrade comes a month after Moody's became the last of the three major credit ratings bodies to lower South African sovereign credit rating to the first rung of non-investment grade, or so-called junk status. Fitch and S&P had already taken that step in 2017. But for more on this and the downgrade, we join now via Skype by Dr Azar Jammine, who is the Director and Chief Economist at Econometrix. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers.
Now, Dr. Jammine, first off, what does this downgrade mean, given that we already have a battered economy? We were already in junk status. What does this mean now?
There is a correlation between the level of long-term interest rates and the depth of junk status into which one could fall. So, yes, initially everyone tends to focus on the difference between junk status and the investment grade, but actually there is a continuum all the way down. You can be reduced into further and further into junk status all the time. And the more that you are reduced into this junk status, the more that you will find that long-term interest rates will tend to rise. And that means that government has to spend more on debt servicing costs, and that crowds out its ability to spend on everything else, such as education, healthcare, security, welfare, and the like.
Government is spending money right now. Government has to spend money right now, Dr. Jammine, on making sure that we actually try and flatten the curve with regard to COVID-19. That money, many have asked, where is it coming from? And of course, you know, are we going to be able to get more wherever that is coming from to at least cushion the blow beyond COVID-19?
The first thing we need to realize about the government's money it's spending on combating COVID-19 is that not all of it is being borrowed by the government. A lot of it, like the UIF funding, like the loan guarantees, like the money that is being deferred taxation, it's actually not money that is coming out of the government's pocket immediately. The UIF money has been accumulated over many years. The loan guarantees are really loans that have to be repaid at a future date. The concessions given by SARS also have to be repaid to the government at a future date. The only thing that will involve new significant funding, one believes, is around 100 billion. It's quite a lot, but it's nowhere near the 500 billion that will be borrowed ostensibly from the IMF or the World Bank and the New Development Bank. And the attraction of those loans is that they come at a very low rate of interest of around 1% compared with current market interest rates, where the government has to borrow from financial institutions at 10%. So in the short term, certainly, the government is able to gain access to those funds required to fight the COVID virus without an extensive increase in its debt over and above what is already in place. The biggest damage currently with government's fiscus is that the economy is set to contract by 6 or 7% this year, and together with the concessions made for shelving tax collections for a while from people, is that government revenue is going to fall very, very steeply. Some estimate by up to 200 billion rand off 1.4 trillion. That's a decline of nearly 15% in government revenue. And that means that government's borrowing requirement will have to increase on a permanent basis, and public debt will rise to undreamed of levels undreamed of until quite recently. And that is why S&P has downgraded us, because from a longer term point of view, that debt will still remain with us. So it's really not so much the stimulus package that has been spent on fighting COVID as much as the fact that COVID has resulted in a sharp contraction in economic activity, which means that tax revenues are going to fall very substantially.
So, Dr. Jammine, where to from here? Because we already had, unacceptably high levels of unemployment even before the advent of COVID-19. We knew our economy was already struggling, had been struggling for quite some time. But, of course, one would imagine that this would present some form of opportunity for us to maybe kickstart some things that are not going right. What would you say? Where do we go to from here?
Well, the one thing that we have to hope for is that once this economy recovers from the immediate effects, negative effects of COVID, that the government does undertake the structural reforms that people have been calling on them to take for so very long, which they have been reluctant to do in the past. That includes fighting corruption. It includes embarking upon infrastructural investment rather than continuously paying public servants more and more and employing a larger public service. It involves improving educational outcomes so that people who come into the workforce can really start adding value in a way that justifies them being able to earn better and be employed. It implies improving the labor relations between employers and workers, and that in turn comes back to education. If you want to reduce inequality, you've got to improve the levels of education to enable people to work more easily in jobs that earn decent money. It involves deregulating the economy and allowing small business to proliferate. Already there is quite a lot of criticism that the government is dictating to people how they should live right now, rather than putting confidence in the people themselves to actually behave in such a way as to limit the spread of the COVID virus. It's structural impediments like that, and then another very big one is to try and do something about improving the running of state-owned enterprises. These were pillaged by state capture over many years, and we see the results in terms of SAA and SA Express virtually disappearing, and we're likely to see more state-owned enterprises going that way if we are not careful, the biggest one, of course, being Eskom.
Oh, we unfortunately have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning, Dr. Azar Jammine, speaking to us about the S&P downgrade. And Dr. Jammine is the Director and Chief Economist of Econometrix. Brings us up to news time.